I am here again live with a very special guest that I met on Facebook, a friend on Facebook. And his name is Ray Luke. And I first noticed you, Ray, on Facebook because you were the first person to be so vocal about Jesus and the Jesus narrative and the ways that it has been used to manipulate the consciousness of humanity. And from both sides, from the Christian side and the Jewish side, which is a conversation not many people are having. And I heard you being so vocal. And from your posts, I thought you were this like 60-year-old man with a long white beard. Like, you're so wise and you're so learned. And then I saw you post a picture of yourself, and I'm like, is that you? Like this young, really cute, buff guy. And I was like, wow, it's like, I love that hi, Ruthie. Okay, there's people jumping on. There are, the truth is coming forward through, whatever channels, and whoever is open to receiving and spreading this truth. And it's just so refreshing to see it come from somebody like you. The subject I want to discuss with you is the life of Jesus and the different ways it has trapped the consciousness of humanity. And it's interesting. I was reading the Gemara that says about Mashiach, the Messiah, sitting at the gates of Rome. And I understood the inference there that he's like facing the Vatican, and the Vatican that perpetrated these lies. And he's taking one bandage off at a time, because we're living in a time where we have to rip off the bandages of the lies that we've been told. This is the Great Awakening.
Yep.
And I think the last one before it's real go time, like Mashiach go time, is going to be when the Christians rip off that bandage, that Jesus bandage, that lie, and then the Jews, the second one at a time. It says Mashiach is doing them one at a time, because I think one has to come off before the other can come off. Okay, this is my intro. And now I want to pick your brain. First of all, I want you to start off by introducing yourself to the audience, say who you are, your background, where you're living, and anything you want to say about yourself, and then we'll go into some questions.
First of all, I just want to thank you, Gila. We've become pretty cool friends, and I appreciate this opportunity to have this important conversation with you. I was born and raised in Miami, Florida. My parents are from Cuba. My grandparents came from Spain to Cuba, and my parents came in 1980 to the States, and I was born in 81.
Oh, wow.
So I was born and raised here in Miami. I went to college at Kennesaw State University. It's like 15, 20 minutes from Atlanta, Georgia. And I played basketball throughout high school and college, and I played professionally for almost 5 years before I had a serious injury. I was about 27 years old, 28, 27, when I had my injury. I blew my knee out, tore my ACL, tore my MCL. And during that interim that I was injured and I was trying to get surgery is when I first had my encounter with the Creator. I was raised Christian. My mother's very, very pious. My older sister too, very, very into God. And so I kind of grew up in that atmosphere, but wasn't really religious. I guess I was too young. And by the time I got into high school, I never considered myself an atheist. I always believed in God, but I didn't really know much. So by the time I had my injury, we fast forward and I had my injury, I was like 28. It was a very bad time. And I started to pray more. I started to read the Bible like something I had never done in my life. And during that time, I drew closer to God, and things happened that I can't even explain. And then from that time on, it's been about 17 years. I think I stayed within the Christian camps for like another 4 years. And everything I was doing, it seemed as God was pulling me closer to the Jewish community and the Jewish people.
Wow.
This was my connection to and my awakening to everything that had to do with the historical religious context of the Jesus story. I had never known any of these things before, and it just came about by asking questions. I would ask questions. I didn't like a lot of the answers I was receiving, and that drove me further to research, to study, to pray. And I began to see a lot of things that I had been told and we have been told throughout history were not exactly so. That was the beginning, my first steps, and I'll tell you that when I started having those, like I would ask my pastor, hey, why is it that why is it that we don't steal, we don't commit murder because those are part of the Ten Commandments, but why is it that we don't keep Sabbath, or something like that? And they would tell me that, well, that stuff is done away, and that didn't sit well with me.
Right.
What I would read in the Bible, and like in the New Testament, it seems to be something totally different. What was going on, and began to read and study a little bit more of church history, and that if anyone's scales ever fell off for real, it was mine. And I mean, nothing was ever the same. I think within 2 weeks, I looked up the local Chabad house.
Whoa.
Yeah, and I started to go to synagogue.
Whoa. I could cry from that. That's beautiful.
Yeah, I remember going to the first day I went to synagogue. I showed up on a Shabbat morning, and when I walked in, I was younger. I was like 28 years old. And when I walked in, I mean, the next closest younger person, the rabbi, was probably in his mid 40s. Um, and it was funny because everybody kind of like froze up. I'm 6'5", I'm
Yeah, you're
tall.
huge. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm 6'5", and I didn't look apart. I came in there, everybody kind of looked at me, and I remember the rabbi signaling to someone in the congregation, to get me a talit and to cover my head.
Oh, oh.
And that was really cool. I was
I
accepted.
love Chabad. I love
Yeah,
Chabad. They know how to do it. They know how to do it right.
they
Yeah.
guided me through the prayers, man, and I was there for almost 3 years. Yeah.
Mm. And who helped you? You converted, correct?
No, I never did. I never did.
Oh, I
At the
thought you
time,
did. Okay.
no, at the time I was married. Um, I have 3 children. I have my oldest is 18 years old now. 18. I have a 15-year-old, Isaiah, Zion, and Elijah.
Nice.
Zion is 15 and Elijah is 12. And at the time, I wanted to, but I never wanted it to be something that I didn't want to force it on my spouse at the time.
Okay.
And so if I said, I would pray to God that I said if it was something that's supposed to be, um, she'll have the same type of feelings.
Okay.
So we moved along. We agreed on all matters of faith, even what was happening at the time, and we drew closer to the Jewish community, but more so as pious Noachites, or
Okay. Okay. I
that
have
that
to change
that's
the title. I thought you were Jewish. I thought that you converted.
a lot of
Yeah.
folks believe this.
Okay.
And I don't only just keep the Noahide laws. I try to do as best as possible according to what the Rambam says, that a non-Jew, who's doing his obligations correctly, can keep more mitzvot if he so chooses so.
Oh, I,
So
I didn't know that. That's beautiful.
yeah, so I try to do the best that I can in other matters of the mitzvot as well.
Okay. Do you have any desire now for conversion, or you just take it one day at a time?
So interesting, I've always wanted Israel and the Jewish people to have real friends outside in the nation. It's so important, right? So I wanted that. I wanted to be one of those people, and I wanted my family to be so. My mother, on the other hand, has converted.
Get
Um,
out of here.
and when I came to the situation where I came into Judaism, my whole family came along as well, which
Whoa.
was incredible.
Look at that influence.
Yeah, which was incredible around the same exact time. And now I've been divorced now for almost 5 years, and I've never had those questions arise again. And it has. I've actually thought about it a lot more than I ever had before, that I would want to convert. Yeah.
It's a big process. It's no
Yep.
small undertaking. Yeah, yeah, it's no joke. So it's got to be like it's an all or none kind of thing.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So I know it's difficult. That's not something that deters me. It's always been something like I think that my mission, if I've seen that my mission in life it's geared towards the church and towards Christianity. And someone helped me when I was inside, when I was within the fold of the Christian faith and within the Christian theology, and someone helped me with kindness, with wisdom, with understanding. And I think sometimes that if I were to convert and move into a Jewish community, whatever, I think that I would seem to lose some of that influence and some of that push that I can do from where I'm at now. I get a lot of messages all the time from people, a lot of Gentiles, non-Jews, who tell me, I'm very grateful, how you speak and you look like a normal person. I can get down to your level, and but at the same time, you're doing all these things. You talk about Jesus, you talk about the Jewish community, you talk about the commandments, etc. And so, I mean, I'm always grateful to God for the platform, that whatever platform He has given me, or the influence that I've been able to have on those closest to me.
Yeah, no, that really resonates with my soul also, that you're following the guidance, your inner GPS for where you're supposed to be. Also, like the way God built you, as if you feel like you're like physically, like you're a protector of the Jewish people. I love that you're 6'5" and like have huge muscles. That makes me feel safer. Honestly, that's really good. And the fact that you're still a Christian will help those who are first hearing about the lies have somebody to grab onto. And the fact that you're still in that within the community gives you a voice over there. I totally hear what you're saying. And I
Yeah,
do, yeah, it does
I,
resonate. Yeah.
within Christianity, if those who know, I mean, I personally think it shouldn't be this way, but this is the reason why there's so many different denominations within the Christian world. I mean, there's literally thousands of denominations,
Thousands.
and it all has to do with theology. They base salvation and they base everything on having the right set of beliefs. You're saved if you believe A, B, and C, and
Oh, oh no. Oh no. Let me try to call Ray. Ray, come back. Oh, you're
can you hear me?
back. Yeah, yeah. Phew. Oh no.
Let's see, something happened here.
How's your battery? You okay, battery?
Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Oh man.
I see you and hear you. Can you see? Oh, this conversation is too good. They know.
Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Oh, I'm
I see
sorry.
you and I hear you.
I'm sorry, Gina. I'm sorry for that. I guess a call tried to come in. So
Okay, no problem.
what I was saying is, they have based salvation, everything, on a set of beliefs. And from my research, and not just mine, I feel that I stand on the shoulders of scholars who have come before me. They set their beliefs on what we would say dogmas. I would say it outright. A lot of dogmas that are not part of the actual faith that we find within the New Testament. I try to tell Christians all the time. I'll have a conversation and I'll tell them, do you know that Jesus is Jewish? A lot of times they'll shake their head. Yeah, he's Jewish. But a lot of times what they mean is this somebody who's just born in Israel. Okay.
Uh,
But what I mean is that he is religiously Jewish. And in his day, until almost 300 years later, there was no such thing as Christianity at all. When scholars call the movement of Jesus Christianity, that is only because they don't want to use for whatever. They want to make a separation between people, Jews who believed in Jesus and Jews who don't. So they'll say that this new movement is called Christianity, but in reality, it's not. Jesus was part of the traditional religious Jewish community of his day. Okay, there was various groups, of course. There was the Pharisees, there was the Sadducees, there was the Essenes that lived out in the desert. But Jesus, according to uh, scholar Geza Vermes and David Flusser, Jesus was a Pharisaic Jew,
Yeah.
A
I want to go
religious
back
Jew.
for a second. I want to go back to the point you were making before you got cut off.
Yes.
I think it's an excellent point that there's thousands of denominations within Christianity, because when you are telling a lie, you know what I mean? It's like there's no consistency there.
Yeah.
And they have to keep covering the lie with new variations
Yep.
of their truth. So I think that in itself is so telling. It's
Yep.
so telling. And really, my intention with you today is I really, really want the world to get to the state of redemption, of Geula, of Mashiach. And I think that once we untrap the consciousness and allow people to come back to their direct intimacy with God, their direct connection, because Christianity, the dogmas you're talking about, is you can only get to the Father through the Son. And that it breaks my heart for humanity to not understand that they have to go through no intermediary, no middleman. There's nothing between you and God. And there's definitely no church there either in that space. It's within. So I want to, with you, set the intention for Geula. For Geula.
For sure.
Yeah. And I want it to be not that we're offending anybody, but just so people can start sparking in their own consciousness and remembering their own birthright. What do you know, Ray? What do you know about that life of Jesus? I'm not so well versed. I don't know the history. So can you fill us in how you feel Jesus was born? Like, what's the true story of his life?
Awesome. I mean, from my studies, and this goes back many years, I've tried to study all the historical scholars on the background of Jesus' life, his birth, etc. What we have is a collection of writings written by, if not the apostles themselves, disciples of the apostles.
Okay.
The writings are very early. I don't think that we have, as ancient texts, anything as close to the actual person as the New Testament writings are to Jesus. Okay, as documents. Jesus was a religious Jew. There was no Christianity in his day. Okay, the problem that has become, and is what we started with, the Christian and the Jewish problem towards Jesus, is that the newly Gentile followers of a pious rabbi living in the Galilee, who didn't really have a lot of contact with non-Jews for the most part. Neither did his apostles, neither did the majority of Jews there, unless it was for political reasons or whatever. Remember, the occupiers at that time was Rome.
Okay.
But they didn't really have a lot of dealings, except to, their constraints and paying taxes, whatever. So once Jesus dies and his apostles take up his message and start pushing his message among other Jews, Paul is commissioned or comes in, and his whole deal has nothing to do with Jews. He is called an apostle, a sent one to the Gentiles, to the non-Jewish world. Okay. And they do not have the same set of obligations as Jews do. So his message may sound a bit different. It's no different from Chabad rabbi and how he would teach, how I have seen rabbis teach Noahides. It's no different. You are not obligated to keep Shabbat. You're not obligated to keep kosher, etc. They'll tell them these things. If a non-Jew draws closer, stays within his obligations for a long time, and then wants to do more, that's neither here or there. It's a personal choice. Okay. But stick to your obligations. This is basically how Paul was commissioned. The only add-on was that he was preaching Jesus at the same time. They believed, all of the apostles believed, that Yeshua was indeed the Messiah. For what they seen, what they witnessed, what they experienced, his teachings had a huge impact on their lives. Just like Rebbe Nachman has had an impact on the Breslover's life, or the Rebbe Schneerson of Chabad has had a huge impact on Juri and Chabadniks. Okay, very similar. And so this is what transpired. Paul died very early, and his work was cut out from him. He had a very difficult job. He's dealing with people. Nowadays, folks have an understanding of monotheism, of the one God of Israel. But back then, it wasn't like that.
Okay.
The Greco-Roman world was polytheistic.
Right.
And they believed in the gods of Mount Olympus, various ones. Their background was Hellenism. And so it was very, very difficult for them, though many were having encounters with the God of Israel and drawing close. At that time, the Noachites were called God-fearers, and many of them did draw close. But it was a difficult situation. And as many of them drew close, they began to learn and they accepted this form of Judaism that was brought down to them.
Okay.
They began to believe in Jesus as their rabbi, as their master, and the one God. Jesus is God, the apostles' God. As things slipped away, Paul died. I'm trying to go through this really quickly. As Paul died, now who's in charge? It falls into the hands of other non-Jews who may or may not have been very educated within Torah Judaism of the first century.
Okay.
And so very, very quickly, things can get inserted that may not have been in there. Various beliefs, okay? And so the way that the belief was taught to the next generation of non-Jews, and things got worse because by 70 AD, over 1 million Jews were killed and expelled from the land of Israel. And there was a real break between Jewish believers in Yeshua and the Jewish community. There was a break.
Okay.
After 70 AD. When that happened, then things got even worse for anyone who claimed to believe in Jesus, whether they were Gentile or Jewish. There was a persecution of the first Christians, and I'm talking about the majority of them being Gentile, non-Jewish Christians. There was a persecution by Rome towards this Christian community. And so things continue to spiral out of control to the point that by the time we get into like the first councils of Christianity and they accepted
Nicaea? Is that Council of Nicaea?
I think there was a few of them before, but Nicaea is one of the main ones.
Right.
By the time we get into the councils and Rome has already accepted Christianity as the state religion, what you begin to hear is almost a different religion coming about.
Right.
Because the way that they are interpreting the teachings of Jesus without having any education within Judaism, it's worlds apart. This is the main issue. And so what has the Jewish community, for the most part, if you weren't part of that first generation of Jesus, his apostles, and hearing it from Jews within Judaism, you're hearing a totally different religion. And so for the most part, what you hear from the Jewish community from about 300, the Common Era, all the way down to our times today, is a reaction towards the Christianity preached by non-Jews, which is not the message of Jesus or the apostles at all.
Wow.
The Gentiles, the non-Jewish world, had a concept of the Son of God too, but their concept of the Son of God, not like the one we find in the Torah, which means a son of God in the Bible is Adam, is his children. Another way that you can call a son of God within Torah Judaism is the angels. Another way that you can say the Son of God was the King of Israel was called the Son of God. He was like an adopted son of God. This had no meaning of ontological terms, meaning that you were one of the sons, a son of the gods, how it was in Greco-Roman world and culture. They had a concept of the Son of God too. He was Hercules. Hercules was half man and half God. It's called the imperial cult of Rome. All of their emperors, their Caesars, their kings were gods in human form.
Right. Real idolatry.
Jesus became another one and the only one. They outlawed all other gods after Jesus.
Do you think wherever Jesus is, his soul is hurting?
Definitely. And I think, I am not dogmatic. I'm not going to say who or what is the Messiah. God will prove who the Messiah is. But I do believe that Yeshua has a spark of the messianic soul within him. He fits the mold. Or as one of my good friends says, he is the paradigm Messiah. And so because he is so, he also feels having the messianic soul means you have the highest level of your soul. There's 5 parts to the soul. And if you have that high level of the soul and you're connected to it, you can feel humanity. And so since he can do that, I believe that he feels the pain of what's going on in his name and what has transpired. Killing his own family and his own brethren with a cross.
Right. In his name.
It's in his name. So just not Jesus, anyone connected to him who really knows the true message should feel this pain.
Yeah. I mean, when I look at that Gemara, that piece of Gemara about him sitting at the gates of Rome, I just see, among the lepers, and I just see that he has been so distorted. Motzi Shemra, his legacy has been inverted, that the evil controllers love to invert. And here they took this man who was trying to teach about the direct connection to source.
Yes.
And they actually used the story of his life to accomplish the opposite, to take away that right. So it must be painful. And I heard also, Ray, that it's like I don't know if you heard the story about the Baal Shem Tov, that in his time he couldn't even approach this klipa. What's klipa?
Like a barrier. A klipa is a barrier.
That because I think now in our time we can approach it because we won't be killed for saying things like this. Back then, if you said one word about the church, you're done.
Yeah.
So I think that's why our conversation is so huge, because we have a Christian and a Jew from both sides. I'm saying the second that the Christian world releases Jesus from that klipa, from that bandage, we rip off that bandage. We don't have to go. He's not a middleman to God. And when the Christians release him from that, the Jews can say he wasn't a villain. Because we had to create a counter narrative to protect the Jewish people from idolatry. This is huge that we need to discuss. You and I need to discuss what the Jews had to do in reaction to the narrative put forth by Rome, by the Vatican. So can you talk about what you know about that? What the Jews had to do?
We have this conversation. I have this conversation with a lot of folks a lot of times. People get bothered by the fact that the Jewish people can't see what maybe they see, or what a lot of people are waking up amongst the non-Jewish world to the realities. I'm not the only one.
Good.
People are coming in droves. There's many. You will find a lot of non-Jews just like myself who are in the synagogue and worshiping God alongside the Jewish people, which is incredible. Now, the countermeasure, and I think it's by divine providence everything that has transpired. And I'll answer the question that you said with the midrash that I have read. The midrash, it contrasts the Messiah with Moses, and it says like this: in the first redemption, it was like what is it called? The Trojan horse. The way that God was able to bring the Jewish people out of Egypt was from within. Someone didn't come from the outside in order to come in and then bring the redemption or help bring God's redemption. Moses was born and raised within Egypt. He is a prince and a general of the Egyptian army.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
When he first came to his people to talk to them, they said, who are you? You're an Egyptian prince. You wear Egyptian clothes. It sounds good from where you're standing, right?
Right.
He ended up having to leave, which is another fascinating midrash that they contrast Moses and the Messiah. Again, they say, just as Moses came, was revealed to the Jewish people, and then was hidden for a while, and then is revealed again, so will be with the Messiah. Okay, say that he would be revealed, he will be hidden for a while, and revealed again. Okay, so Moses was brought from within the Egyptian world, and it is just so interesting that Jesus is almost not known as a religious, as is its real true context at all. He's known as this blonde, blue-eyed man who, in Roman clothes, who says he's God and has no connection to the Jewish people or to the Torah, because of the narrative that's been spun for almost 2,000 years.
Right.
The Midrash continues to say that the same way that Moses was within, the Messiah within will be within Edom.
Oh, wow.
And from there, he will bring the Jewish people to the Geula, to the redemption. This can mean so many things. We don't know the exact details of what that means, but I take it to mean that it has something a lot to do with consciousness, with awakening people's minds to the facts of God's truth, of his will, of the Torah. This is what I believe it truly means, that as the scales fall off, as the klipa falls off of the messianic soul, so it would fall off the consciousness of humanity as well.
Whoa, the leprosy. That's beautiful.
Yes. So Rabbi Mendel Kessen, you know who Rabbi Mendel Kessen is?
Of course.
He teaches that, he says like this, that his brother, actually, his twin brother, Rabbi Shimon Kessen, teaches that the first tahara, the first correction must proceed first with the Messiah. He must be freed from his prison first in order for the redemption to come. That once he's freed from his prison and he has tikkun, he has a rectification, then the entire rectification will come on to humanity. The Messiah he weighs, or I say it like this, he weighs as much as all of Klal Israel. That Moses, there was 600,000 souls within Moses, because he's the Yechida of all of Israel. Okay, and so the Messiah is the same way. And so once he has his rectification, his tikkun, and he's released from his prison, then the redemption will come on for the rest of Israel and the world in general.
You just said it in a much better way. What my soul has been trying to express, that through the acknowledgement of the false narrative of Jesus, we free him. Like, I wanted to make t-shirts, free Jesus, free him from the lies perpetrated on his lifetime.
Yep.
And understanding the concept of Yechida, that once he is let out of that prison of lies, all of humanity is as well. It is all of us hinging on this releasing of the fall. And it is a consciousness shift. It is not physical. It is ideology. Yeah.
Yes. Gila, think about this. There are about almost 3.5 billion Christians in the world. Huge. Think about this. If even half of Christians were to have this type of awakening, it would literally signal the redemption.
Yes, beautiful.
Imagine everyone having this conscious shift. Oh, our teacher, our master is a rabbi, a Jewish rabbi, right. Never left Judaism. All his apostles were the same. And what would that do for all these non-Jews? They would draw near to Israel and protect them with their own lives.
That's right.
Friends.
Right. All these buff 6'5" non-Jews. I like the image of that. I do.
Yeah.
I do. And it's because they were so smart. The church was so smart because in hijacking the story of Jesus, they made the Jews public enemy number one. We killed him. We killed the Savior. You know what I mean? They played all the angles so well. And also the Jewish people, what have you heard, right? Like, I never really heard a definitive what did Jesus do wrong in the false Jewish narrative? And I'll call it that straight up, the false Jewish narrative that Jesus was a villain. Like I've heard that he, kind of what you were saying before, that he told Jews not to follow Torah, that he did something wrong with a woman. Like I've heard so many things, and there's not one consistent story, which in and of itself tells me it's a lie, tells me it's a fabrication. What have you heard? Like, what have Jews distorted according to your learning? Like, what have we distorted about his life that we need to rectify?
I think that for the majority, and I'd say about 98% of all Jews, including religious Jews and who may talk about this topic, there's a lot of polemicism, there's a lot of polemics that are involved. The majority of people have never read the New Testament. Forget about reading the New Testament, have never read the Gospels, which is the life and times of Jesus. What did he do? What did he teach? But you would be surprised if anyone has done it, they've come to a different conclusion.
Right.
Okay. A lot of the things that we hear are not connected to the actual historical accounts, sources that we have within the Gospels. So you'll hear a Jew say something like this. Jesus did something that was wrong with some woman at a hotel, at an inn.
Right.
That's not found in the New Testament. That's part of a Gemara, something found in the Talmud, which in actuality, many rabbis, many learned rabbis, and many scholars will tell you that the Yeshu found in the Talmud is not the historical Yeshua of Nazareth from the New Testament accounts.
Okay.
These scholars will tell you that the narrative spun about Yeshu ben Pandera is someone else who was born either way too late, 150 years way too late, or 100 years too early.
Okay.
Various rabbis tell this, and I've written articles with all of the sources. Okay. So you have a lot of these polemics that are not actually found within the accounts, which are very, very late after the fact. And it makes sense that these things will creep in because of all the suffering that was happening at the hands of Christians to Jews.
Right.
It's only normal that something like that would happen.
Right.
They had to have an answer for the Jewish community, okay?
Right.
To keep everything, like you said, to keep both groups set apart. But what did Jesus actually teach? There's a very learned Talmudist. He is a great Rav. A lot of folks know him, the Yavitz, Rabbi Yaakov Emden, okay? He read the New Testament. He read the Gospels. First, I'll tell you exactly what Jesus says in Matthew 17 through 19. Jesus says like this concerning the Torah. He says, do not think that I have come to do away with the Torah or the prophets. I have not done. He says, do not even imagine, do not even think of such a thing. But I have come to fulfill it, meaning I've come to keep it. Okay? That's the first thing he says. He says, anyone who teaches anyone who teaches against even one of the least of the mitzvot, one of the least of the commands shall be called least in the kingdom of heaven.
Beautiful.
But anyone who teaches about the greatness of the commandments, he shall be great within the kingdom. The Yavitz read the Gospels. He quotes these exact verses. And he says that Jesus, that he has brought a double blessing to the Jewish people. That unlike, he says it like this, these are not my words. He says, unlike any other rabbi in the world, he has brought a double blessing. And in that, he has strengthened the Torah for the Jewish community, and at the same time brought many blessings to the nations.
Okay.
Because the beauty about the whole thing is that Jesus himself never went out to the non-Jewish world. He didn't do this. So once he died, it's called Hashgacha Pratis. It was God's divine providence who used this man and his teachings, his Torah, to come out to the nations. And through this, however bad history has been in the last 2,000 years, I think without Jesus of Nazareth and without his teachings and the teachings of the apostles, things would have been 10 times worse.
I think you're right.
We know from scholars the effect for good that Christianity has had on the world. We are not discarding none of the bad. For sure, there's been a lot of bad, but there's also been a lot of good, from education to medicine to science has all come under this umbrella.
And
God has,
not only that, I have heard that it primed the consciousness for the concept of a Messiah.
the Rambam says this.
Yeah.
The Rambam said, Maimonides says this in Mishnah Torah.
Oh,
He says that Jesus, that he has been able, through the preaching of Jesus, the world has come to know about a Messiah. They've come
exactly.
to
I didn't
know
know that
about,
was Rambam.
yeah, he says they have come to know about the one God,
Right,
about commandments. Yes, it has
right.
some distortions in it, but
Yes.
now the consciousness of the world is primed.
Yeah.
It's ready. This
Yeah.
is what a lot of rabbis have taught, and it agrees with certain verses in the Bible that are prophetic, like in Genesis, when Esau and Yaakov meet, they have that deadly encounter, right? And they're getting ready to go to Mount Seir, which prophetically is code for Rome.
Right.
Prophetically, Rome is the last empire, so it's talking about heading towards Rome, heading towards the final destination, right? What happens? They say, Esau says, let's go together. And Yaakov says, you go on ahead, and we will travel at the pace of the children and animals.
Wow.
They go slower, and Christianity takes off. Rome takes off, but disconnected.
Right.
Remember that Esau is a twin brother of Jacob. He's actually also Jewish.
Yes. Yes.
Rabbi Mendel Kessin teaches this. He just
Yeah.
got away from his mission and from what his job was supposed to be.
Right. He was running to the destination a little too soon and too quickly, and it allowed room for mistakes.
A lot of mistakes that have cost us. But these things, just like God knew that Adam and Eve would sin in the very beginning, we don't know all the answers to why things happen, but through God's divine providence, things work for the good for those who trust in Hashem.
Oh, yes. And I also remember seeing that Jacob, deferred a blessing that he got from his father Isaac, saying that his brother will defend him by the sword, something to that effect, right? You know that what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So the way I understood that is it's for now, meaning this is the way, you might not agree with me. I view Trump as a hero.
Okay.
And I view him as the embodiment of Rome and Christianity right now. I think Kessin's a big Trump guy.
Yeah.
So I see the deferment of that bracha for end times, such as now, and I see that Trump is like main character energy of this world. He is a big player character for the end times, and I see, like I always say to myself, he's got the potential for Mashiach ben Yosef, the phase one where evil gets eradicated, and I see him taking out the deep state left and right and eradicating evil, doing the job, fulfilling the job of Mashiach ben Yosef, right? And I see with this main character, with this protagonist energy that he has, everything is hanging in the balance on this one man right now. What the election, whatever it is, the fate of humanity kind of hinges on one protagonist. So I say, if not Trump and not now, then when and who? Is there going to be a whole other set of lead up events to Geula? Aside from what we're living right now, I don't think so. So I think I've read this. I'm not as good as you, Ray, but I read this. I don't know the exact place, that Mashiach is going to be a mosaic, like a composite of different souls, like the nefesh of the 5 layers, the nefesh of this one, the ruach of this one, the neshama of this one. And I think Jesus is in the mix, is in the mosaic. And I think Trump, I don't know if Jesus is in the Mashiach ben Yosef part, in the Mashiach ben David. Mashiach ben David, I view as a sky event. It sets off, Chanoch and Eliyahu Navi and everything that it's in the Jewish consciousness that is going to be the Merkava and all the other galactic events of the Mashiach ben David, the Mashiach ben Yosef is the lead up.
Yes.
I call it the Trump phase. And I do believe that Trump is a main player. And as hard as it is to say, because Jews have been so trained never to speak of Jesus, like you're going to shut down the room. If you say the word Jesus, like everyone goes quiet and like what, like they can't handle it.
Yeah.
So for me to even say, I think Jesus, the soul of Jesus is a main player character in this. Also, you give me the background, the history, the receipts to be able to say that that Jesus did prime the consciousness for Mashiach, and his soul, once he's released from the lies, once the bandages come off, and he's redeemed back to the Jewish people, I think he's gonna in some way, shape, or form come back. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the main things that has to happen after God sends whoever the Messiah will be, and the redemption begins to unfold, will be the resurrection of the dead. It won't be.
All right, Jesus will be there for sure.
Yeah, so we definitely will see what is what. We all have to be busy with doing the will of God,
Amen.
doing good deeds. It says, how can you spare yourselves from the sufferings of the footsteps of the Messiah? Do good deeds.
Simple.
Do good deeds. Do good deeds. Repent. Do good deeds in prayer. This is what we can do. These are the things that are going to change, or going to unbalance things for the good. One deed, one person's deed can tip the balance for the redemption, for the good. So
even this conversation.
Exactly.
Even you who's listening out there, we have 16 people. We don't know what we're moving in the heavens with this.
Exactly. We're all connected. Trump is connected as well. All people have these two leading souls, or influences, or powers, or parts of the process of the messianic, of the redemption. And we're talking about the process of Mashiach ben David and the process of Mashiach ben Yosef.
Yes.
People's souls are connected to one or the other from the beginning of time. It's
right.
This is what Rabbi Mendel Kessin says. The moment that Adam was getting ready to sin, the Yechida flies around the crown of the head of man always. And the moment he went to sin, the Yechida flew away.
Yeah.
At that moment, it was only one. But after the sin, the Yechida split, and it's two halves. You have the one half is for the Mashiach ben Yosef, and the other half is for the Mashiach ben David. And they're two different missions that set the stage until we get back into Geula. And then there's a pasuk, there's a verse in Ezekiel that says, and the stick of Yosef and the stick of David of Yehuda shall be made one again. And for the most part, what had happened to the northern tribes? Didn't they go into exile and be lost amongst the nations? Okay? Incredible things are coming, and only God knows, man. But it's exciting to live in these times.
It is. Well, I think that's a good place to end. I think right on that high right there. I want to just shout out again to Rabbi, I don't know if I said his name before, Rabbi Ariel Cohen. You know him?
Rabbi Ariel Cohen, yeah, Laurel.
Yeah. So he took the initiative. He started a campaign to redeem the soul of Jesus back, to do a pidyon, it's called, of the soul of Jesus back to the Jewish people. I think that's a huge part of the Geula process also. So I just want to shout out to him. And I just thank you so much for agreeing to do this conversation with me.
Thank you, Gila. I appreciate it. And maybe we could do it again sometime. I appreciate
love that. I absolutely love that. Have an easy day.
You too. Blessings.
See you in Miami. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Shalom.
Bye. Shalom.